Okay, you notice now the reed is threaded. So the next part would be to put the reed in the beater. I have the top of the beater here, and we put it up here. I'm going to hold the reed and take the two sticks out. Some people have used curtain rods with little hooks, all sorts of things, but make sure whatever you have that's long enough that's going to work. The next, that's going to not fall off on you. The next thing would be to put the reed in, and the other thing, you want to make sure that none of the threads are stuck underneath. So I have that in. The other thing is, with this one, I make sure the wing nuts are facing me. Then they won't ding up the loom. I've noticed when sometimes I refurbish looms, there's a lot of dinging. Well, you put the wing nut here, it makes it easier to tighten. You can see it. It might not look as pretty to look at, but it works that way. So the next thing is I don't need any of the attachments anymore. So the first thing I might do is take the sticks out in the back. So I'm unsnapping. That's what I like to do. Of course, with these handy dandy warping helpers, you can always check those out. I'll take the sticks out, and then I'll also take, if you have cord or whatever you have attached to your loom, however you do it, I'm going to take those out because we don't need any of that anymore. And the other thing, some people leave the rattle on. I don't leave the rattle on because it's up too high. I want to have my warp to be even, and to have it even, need to take that out. Otherwise, the back beam is higher than the front beam. Not something that works very well for your weaving. When you're weaving, you have the back higher. It's a little, your shed might be a little awkward. A little higher than the other one. All right, so there's one more thing I need to take out. Are those blocks that are holding the shafts up. I'm going to step on those. Take the blocks or the cones or wood or whatever you might have used to hold your shafts up. So now those are all ready, out, and the next thing will be to start to tie the warp on. Now there's a lot of different ways people lace it on, there's many different ways, I guess I should say. Sometimes when you learn one way it works for you, you kind of get stuck in that way, and that's what happened to me. I'm kind of stuck on the way that I like. I have tried a couple others, but tend to fall back onto what works for me, and it's one of the things that I do that kind of feel like it works, and I get nice even selvages this way. So I have the rod again. Like I said, I like the metal rods. It's easier to tie around a metal round piece than it is to tie on square. At least for me it does. I'm going to pull all of these out back here. Pretty. That might be too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind a little bit this back. Now in this particular case, all of this is going to be fringe. So anything that I tie on here will actually be some of the fringe for this scarf. So I can just tie it loosely. What I'm doing actually is a square knot. So I'm going to do one loose one. But again, I'm going to move this back just a little bit because I don't want to have that much of a fringe. Okay, let's see if that works. And these are nicely in 2-inch pieces, sections. You have to work around. Some people have aprons with little slots in. This one doesn't. Used to be all the looms that I had aprons on, which sometimes provides an even tension for some people all the way across. But we all work with what we have. Decided now that aprons are not something that I absolutely need. I do that little overhand knot so it all comes out even, but it doesn't always. There we go. And you can pull it when you're getting it ready. Kind of straighten it out a little bit. Another overhand, first part of the square knot. Now, another friend of mine showed another way. So another way that you can do it works pretty well too. Actually, I might go back and do that one again. She wraps it 2 times, 1 and then again. By doing that, she doesn't have to do the square knot. So let's finish it with that. Let's do the last one that way. Take it around. And like I said, she wraps it around 1 and then 2. Now the other reason she does that is that when she's finished with the weaving, she does not have to try to untie a square knot, and it takes up a little less yarn. I'm going to go back and do the same thing for the other ones. I'm going to wrap it around twice. So thank you, my friend Chris, who showed me how to do that. So I'm going to go back and do the same thing for the other one. You may see often though the square knot that I started to do. And this is one of those things at first when she showed it to me or told me about it, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work or not. Well, found out that she was right. So again, I'm going back and I'm wrapping it around 2 times. So right now it's kind of loose. I like to go back and tighten this a little bit. Then what I do is start with the middle one. It's kind of start with the middle one, tighten it. Then I go side to side. This one's next. And then this one. And I go to the edges, the selvage is last. Selvage is last. Do it again. Now if I was doing the square knot, I would do the same thing, back and forth, side to side. And then the third time I would go back and tie the other side of the square knot over. I'm not going to do that in this case. Right now, this is all ready to weave. All ready. There we go. And move things around a little bit. Get everything ready. Ready to weave. All right. So now we're ready to start weaving. We have to decide if we're going to use a stick shuttle or a boat shuttle or what kind of a shuttle. And this, for me, I prefer using the boat shuttle. It's a little bit quicker, but you can also use a stick shuttle if that's the kind of loom you have. The way that I showed you how to thread this loom is the same thing that you can do on a table loom. You have all the shafts and everything. Instead of using your feet to lift everything, you would be using levers at the top. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a direct tie-up just to show you how it's set up. So when I start weaving, I'm going to explain a little bit about the different shafts and how each one I'm going to tie it up separately to each one of these, just to give you an idea how it operates. A lot of times you see these pictures and they're tying two or three or 1 and 3, and it gets a little confusing. So when you're first learning to weave, it's a good idea to try some things that are more direct than what maybe you might call it indirect. So we'll move on to that next. Let's take a look at the treadles. Right now, I only have 4 attached. If I had a table loom, each one of those 4 levers at the top would be attached, or to the side, depending on what kind of table loom you have, would be attached to 1 shaft. So right now, I have 1 tied on this one, 2 on this one, 3 on this one, and 4 on this one. So I'm going to, I moved back. I also have a different angle so you can see what's going to be happening. What I'm going to do as I press 1, the first shaft goes up. I press 2, the second one goes up, and 3, and 4. If you had, like I said, a table loom, you would be pulling the shafts up separately. In this case, if you're going to do what we call a tabby or plain weave, you need to alternate between the odd numbers and the even numbers. So in this case, I'm going to press 1 and 3, and I would take my yarn through, and then I would press 2 and 4, and go back the other direction. So you're going over and under, back and forth. You would go 1 and 3, and then 2 and 4. This is a very good way to start to learn the weaving process rather than just tying everything up. It helps you to understand how everything works. If I wanted to do something else, like a twill weave, whole other situation, I would do the 2 side by side, 1 and 2. Then I would do 2 and 3. The 2 are gone. And then I would do 3 and 4. And then I also need to catch the next one, which is 1 and 4. Again, that's a whole other lesson in itself, but some people might be already into that situation where you're already starting to figure out some things and how everything works. But I wanted to explain that a little bit to everyone who's just getting into weaving so you understand a little bit more what's going on. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to actually start to do some of the weaving. All right, so I've decided I'm going to use my boat shuttle with a bobbin, winding a bobbin and all that. You can check, I have another video explaining how to wind a bobbin. I've already tensioned this, and it's just a nice tension. If I wanted to make it a little bit tighter, I can. I like my tension fairly tight. I'd already decided that the warp is nice and textured, so I chose a light lavender color cotton. This is the 3-2 cotton to start my weaving. Now sometimes you will see people will use filler, maybe some fat yarn or cardboard or other things to get started. Another thing that I learned from another weaver was that that wasn't necessary. It kind of is not, it distorts the actual weaving width. Now this time again, I have a direct tie up on a purpose. So right on my feet, I'm going to press 1 and 3 together. And in this case, it's nice to see all the dark purple came up. And if I go back the other direction, all the lighter purple came up. So I like to throw, I have my feet on the left going to the left, so everything's on the left. The other thing, tuck that first one in and pull it. And usually beat with it shed open. First couple, and then I want to tug it in there. I'm going to go back to the 2 and 4 now. This is just the very beginning. Back the other direction. And if you notice, it's a little bit of an angle. Close the shed and then move my feet the other way. But I'm beating with the shed open. That allows the weft thread to find the best spot for it. And yes, there's some gaps going on right now. I'm going to keep weaving until the gaps are no longer as noticeable. Since this is going to be a scarf and I'm going to tie the ends or maybe even braid them or twist them, all that end is going to, all of this part will eventually, once it's taken off the loom, will be able to spread out. So right now there's the beginning part, and it's kind of going in a little bit, but that's all right. It's starting to now even out. Everything looks pretty good. Tension's still pretty good, not a problem with that. And again, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go back the other direction. And keep weaving. And like I said, this is a tabby weave, a plain weave, because it's nice to do something like that when you have textured yarn. If I did a twill weave or something else, sometimes all those pretty yarns of different colors and the shading of the hand dye might be lost. So sometimes just you think, oh, that's pretty easy. But again, depending on what yarn you have, that's where you have to decide what you're going to do with the yarn you're going to use. I'm going to now demonstrate how to tie up the loom, so I only have to use 2 treadles. Now, if you had a table loom, you could use both fingers at a time to press down or press the levers down to have your shafts come up, or you do one at a time, whatever you want. But I just want to show the basic way of doing it. So now, okay, we take a look now. There are only 2 treadles. It makes it easier to disconnect all the other ones. You don't go too far. And what I've done is I have 1 and 2 shafts tied on, or 1 and 3 shafts tied on the dark brown treadle, and I have 2 and 4 on the lighter wood. And when I press each one down, different shafts are going to go up at the same time. See if we can take a look at it a little bit closer here so you can see what's happening at the top. So when I press down on the first treadle, 1 and 3 come up. And when I press down on the other one, 2 and 4 come up. So I don't have to go back and forth on all the different treadles. I'm just going to go back and forth, left to right, left to right. And again, for myself, I happen to, whatever, we all have different things. Press down because I'm moving to the left, it goes to the left, and when I come back, I go to the right. Each of us learns a different way to weave. The other thing we want to try to work on is shifting our weight side to side, and we're also moving our body a little bit on the bench as you're weaving. So you're kind of rocking forward and backward motion as you're weaving. So now here we are, using the left, going to the left, and then back to the right. Now also, I just see it's a little bit of an angle when I move the beater forward. To the left, and then to the right. Back and forth. And getting into the rhythm. Go not too close. This is about as far as needed. Otherwise, what starts to happen is the selvages get a little wonky. So I'm going to release the brake. I'm not sure what kind of loom you have. Each one's a little different. Then I'm going to let go of it because now you want to tighten it. The other thing, make sure that you don't go too far. If you go too far, then your beater will start to hit this. If it does, then you're going to have to take the hook off, whatever you have off the back, and wind it back the other direction to keep it going the same way. So what I'll be doing is continuing to weave with this yarn until I get to the end, and then I'm finished.